What's going on, YouTube? So apparently a very small film just recently released, and according to my notes it's called Avengers Endgame. Does that I'm just kidding. I know what Avengers Endgame is. It's like the biggest thing that happened in the last decade. Anyways, the point is that there's been a video that's been circulating around, sort of starting rumors about whether or not the Avengers cast are really thrilled about their newest member, Captain Marvel, otherwise known as the actress Brie Larson. And this video on Entertainment Tonight has Brie Larson, Don Cheadle, and Chris Hemsworth, and supposedly you can see some animosity between the actors in that particular video. Well, luckily for you, that's what we do here at Predictive Art. We basically utilize body language and situational awareness to help you at home in your daily life basically figure out these circumstances to basically keep yourself safe and give you an edge. But without further ado, without further sales pitch from me, let's go ahead and take a look at that Entertainment Tonight video and see what we can learn. Alright, so the first thing right out the gate before we get this video actually playing is I just want to take a quick impression of the way they're all seated together. Now, any body language expert worth their salt is going to rely specifically on context. You can't utilize body language in isolation and then try to interpret that to a particular point. Meaning, like, just because someone is sitting or acting or doing something doesn't mean that it's because of the person who's in the room or because of the situation they're in, right? What you have to do is you kind of have to build a story, which is what we're going to do as we go along here, is build a context on whether or not these three are in kind of a friction built relationship or kind of a lucid relaxed friendship. But right out the gate, my first impressions here is starting with the feet. Now, the feet are usually the most honest of all of your extremities. And the reason is because they're far more disconnected from the brain, and it's a lot harder to maneuver them for deception. And so my initial interpretation here is if you look at the way they're all sitting, okay, so Chris Hemsworth has his feet pointed away from Brie Larson. Brie Larson has her feet pretty much directly in front of her. They're probably twisted, but crossed, but they're pretty much directly towards the interviewer. And then you have Don Cheadle, who also is pointing away from Brie Larson. Now, again, it always comes down to context. This could have something to do with the way they're seated, just to try not to be in each other's way. But that's the first initial aspect that I get, is because we have a tendency to want to point our bodies towards people we like and away from people we don't like. It's just kind of how human nature works, and we'll get into that as the video goes. The second thing I want to kind of point out here is take a look at the way that they're smiling, right? They're very fake smiles. They're not toothy smiles in the way that people who are really actually happy to be someplace or excited present. And so it kind of gives off the initial impression that they're a little bit uncomfortable, whatever the case may be. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's because of each other. It could just be because of the situation that they're in. But right now, they're obviously having very kind of half smiles that looks like something is causing a little bit of problem and a little bit of friction in their lives. All right, so let's go ahead and get this video started.
Brie, what was it like joining this group, this universe?
I love that. Just go to the next one.
All right, so let's pause this right here and just take a look at the body language and ignore the joke that just happened. If we were to just watch this on silent, how would we necessarily interpret this body language? Well, the first thing that stands out to me is the prominent V between Don Cheadle and Brie Larson and Chris Hemsworth and Brie Larson. And basically what it is that their upper torsos are actually moving away from Brie Larson, which is an indicator of distance. And it's something we talk about in our classes. But basically, what's going on is if they really like Brie Larson and if this was just a friendly jab, chances are they probably would be leaning in or leaning out and then leaning in as kind of like the way friends do. But the fact is that in this particular case, they're demonstrating a solid V shape that demonstrates they're trying to create distance from Brie Larson in the center. All right. Now, let's also take a look at Don Cheadle. And I think if you were to compare just the body language specifically between Don Cheadle and Chris Hemsworth is significantly more relaxed in this video than Don Cheadle is. one of the things we also teach in our classes is that, your core is a big function of displaying your intent and your interest. And he spends the entire video, and at least up to this point, pretty much trying to pull himself away from Brie Larson. Both hands are actually pointed in an opposite direction of her and towards off camera. And that's kind of an indicator in and of itself that he's basically trying to get some of his attention away from her. He's trying to create distance, even though he's in this kind of small, confined area. So, but let's go ahead and continue. And those are the initial, concepts that I see that resonate in this particular scene.
Intimidating at first, mostly because this is where it all began for me, was on this film. We filmed this before Captain Marvel. So I was figuring out this character, but very much in the dark, because there was no script to read. There wasn't even, it wasn't all fleshed out yet with the Captain Marvel solo film either. So it was just kind of finding our way, but it was a good group of people to figure it out with, right, guys?
Yeah.
Wasn't it fun being there for all my extra takes?
Trained you up.
All right, let's slow this down and watch this again. Look at the difference in reactions between Don Cheadle and Chris Hemsworth when she tries to joke around with them. Don Cheadle immediately tries to remove his arm because of some kind of friction between the two of them, and his face is full of frustration.
I don't feel like I actually learned anything.
Don, what was it like when somebody new comes in? Is there like an initiation? Is there are you accepting? You're like, oh.
No.
So the response to this question is very interesting. Taking a look at the way that Brie Larson and Don Cheadle responds, Brie Larson slowly closes her eyes and nods her head to the affirmative that there was some form of initiation. And Chris Hemsworth does the same with a very sharp scowl. And what I basically take from this is that there was some kind of an initiation, and it didn't go very well. Whatever happened ended up creating some kind of space and some kind of discomfort between Brie Larson and specifically Don Cheadle. Something happened in the past that indicates that this was kind of maybe the start of where this sort of friction occurs that is consistently on display in this interview. Another quick thing that I want to point out is the fact that during this entire conversation between Don Cheadle and the interviewer, Brie Larson doesn't turn to actually face Don Cheadle to hear the story. Instead, she stays very straight and just kind of looks at him through the side of her eyes. And that's also another indicator, again, her trying to create space and not be part of the question and the conversation that's going on between Don Cheadle and the interviewer.
There was definitely a hazing period.
I think I'm still in it.
She's still in it.
Still in it?
Yeah. And it's good because we actually get to kind of play with that. We do anyway, for sure, in the scene itself when she kind of shows up. So it was nice, but she kind of fit right in. She paid her dues on time. The initiation dues were paid promptly. And
Still waiting for my membership card that hasn't been received.
$25, yeah. That'll come. The card comes.
It'll come. And then you're in. Once you get your card, you pay your dues, and everything is in.
Exactly.
Chris, we did a thing with...
I just want to point this last part out. Look how Don Cheadle adjusts his body posture after he kind of takes a stab at Brie Larson. Kind of almost like a confidence booster, and he kind of relaxes a little bit and doesn't remain as uptight. And it's just something interesting to notice as you're watching the video and this kind of tense situation that's unfolding.
Your body double / stand-in. And he sent a little message that is, in a sense, a message, in a sense, a challenge. Here you go. Yeah, hold on just a second.
I want to see him hold a handstand for, let's be generous, I want to see Chris hold a handstand for 5 seconds.
What? I can't even do it. Why would Bobby set me up like that? I'm against a wall.
Take a look at Don Cheadle as Chris Hemsworth makes a funny comment. Don Cheadle immediately jumps up and turns his body towards Chris Hemsworth, kind of indicating a very comfortable nature of being part of the joke and the way that friends do very typically.
I don't know. Bobby just said he was like, I want to see Chris do that.
Well, we heard we're tight on space in here, you said.
Yeah.
He can walk in his hands for like 50 meters. So
what?
He's proper, whatever you call that skill.
Stunt.
Handstandy man?
Circusy.
Yeah.
But what is that relationship like? Because you now are coming out with doing the whole thing.
Yeah, it's great because he just gets injured and I don't. He does all the hard stuff and makes me look cool. And then, but now I've told you, it doesn't make me look cool, does it?
So this kind of stood out to me, the way that Brie Larson lifts her chin during Chris Hemsworth's story and kind of looks down her nose at him. And it may be an indicator of, where kind of the friction started, because he's obviously telling a story trying to be humble and trying to sort of give credit to his stuntman. And it's almost as if she doesn't quite understand it, so she's taking it as sort of a certain air of superiority that she has because, as you'll find out later, that she did her own stunts. Now, I don't know necessarily, and again, I'm not necessarily a mind reader. I'm not a mind reader, but the fact is this shows a certain amount of arrogance from Brie Larson, and it's also possible that it's a sense of flirtation. Now, I'm not going to go into that, but there's a great YouTube channel called Body Language Ghost that kind of goes into a little bit of what might actually be occurring here on a deeper level, I guess, a romantic level, that kind of discusses maybe this is some kind of a flirting technique by Brie Larson. Of course, I'm not going to touch that. I'm more looking at specifically the way that she kind of holds this sense of very stiff-necked, very kind of rigid sort of air of superiority to a story that Chris Hemsworth is specifically trying to expand upon and give credit to the stuntman that doesn't get a lot of credit for these films.
You know that I don't actually do it.
So you don't do...
I do all my stunts.
I did my stunts because I thought that that's what everyone did.
Could I get Tom Cruise over here?
No, I'll be the first me, not the next Tom Cruise. Thank you very much.
Well, he does his own stunts. No, I do. We all do stunts.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that comment definitely made everyone uncomfortable. But one of the things I really want to point out is sort of Don Cheadle's response after Brie Larson makes her comment. If you notice, he's extraordinarily calm, and then she makes her comment and his left arm starts fidgeting with his foot or his pant leg. It's just a subtle indicator of nervousness that shows the tension in the room at that moment.
But there's certain things that are like, you might die. So I'm like, you can do that one.
Yeah.
So you just said
Very
about
generous.
I think about that.
Yeah.
In many ways, this is an ending for others, for some, and it's a beginning for others. Like Brie, hey.
And here's another indicator of Don Cheadle, pointing at Brie Larson with his thumb instead of, looking at her, kind of keeping his gaze straight forward or closing his eyes. Just another indicator of friction between the two.
You're the new kid. This is start, but for others, clearly this is the end game.
Yeah.
Clearly. How emotional is that saying goodbye to this family, this group?
What I really liked seeing was on the day that when we did that big photograph and everybody got together and everybody had a book and everybody was going around like it was, the last day of high school. Okay, could you sign my book? Could you sign my book? And, new people were meeting each other. And that's the other thing about this. There's so many characters and we're all coming in for this last sort of moment that there's all these new relationships being built and, we kind of get to come back and meet each other again, see each other again. There's a real, I think, affection among the cast members, except for...
No, this is terrible.
And there you have it. I don't even have to go any further. Brie Larson basically admits to the confrontation between her and Don Cheadle. And Don Cheadle obviously, egging her on. But let's watch it again for confirmation.
And there's a real, I think, affection among the cast members, except for...
No, this is terrible.
Okay, so we don't need to necessarily go any further. I think the evidence is pretty clear. There is some animosity going on there between Brie Larson and her castmates. Now, what I want to do is, now that you've kind of seen what negative body language looks like, I want to make sure you have a point of reference so that you understand where I'm coming from. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at a Jimmy Kimmel video that involves the other Avengers cast without Brie Larson, and for you to see exactly how they interact when she is not in the room. All right, so let's take a look at that, and you'll see kind of a juxtaposition on behavior.
I feel like this might be it, right? I mean, this could be it. This could be the last one. This probably is the last one.
On your show?
No. Just for them, Paul. You can come back. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, good,
no,
good.
I feel like this is the last gathering of the Avengers on the show.
The future's very uncertain.
It is. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It was May 5th, 2008 that you were here
Oh, wow.
Don't lie to him. We're not gonna ever.
You're
we're
never coming back.
All right, so there you have it. There is obviously some animosity going on between Brie Larson and her castmates, as you could tell in comparing those two different clips, one with positive body language and the other with negative body language. So that concludes it for this video. I hope you learned a lot. If you like this video, give us a big thumbs up. Also, if you have any discrepancies, if you think I'm wrong or if you think I missed something, please put that in the comment section below. We love having conversations like this to engage our viewership and talk about things that matter to you. If you want to take one of our classes will be online soon and ready to teach you how you can analyze things like this on a daily basis to help you in the boardroom, at home, anywhere in your life, and specifically around dangerous situations. So go ahead and look us up. Anyways, that's it. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, you're a fucking hero.